thing was about fighting back. I don't know if we ever thought we'd win, but it was about, vocal, on the streets protests, and that's what we did every Saturday. And I don't know if we ever, I don't know, we probably did think we could win, but I'm not sure. I mean, the Tory party, it was very, very powerful, and it wasn't just the Tory party. It was like, it felt like Thatcher had captured something in the British psyche, and that was what we were trying to figure out. What was it? Why do you need to mobilise this hatred for lesbians and gays?
I think there was a kind of weary disbelief about it, because it was kind of around the time of the poll tax. So Thatcher had done some really invidious things, but this felt particularly nasty. It was kind of saying, people are just being gay to be difficult. And actually, if they tried hard enough, they could just be normal and heterosexual. I think, weary disbelief, anger, some laughter, actually, that it was so ridiculous, absolutely ludicrous. And for me, I was working in theatre. A lot of my friends were gay. Yeah, and it also felt vicious coming kind of during the AIDS pandemic. It felt like punishing gay people for HIV, saying this is your fault, so we're going to eliminate you.
I knew nothing of it. Nothing. It's not that, it's embarrassingly short time since I actually was aware of it. I've also been talking to quite a lot of people about clause section 28, and a lot of the people I've been talking to were very active at the time. They were teachers, they were campaigners, and their experience was very different to mine, because myself and my friend I was talking to this morning were in it, and so it was a kind of elephant in the room more than it was. We were directly the subject of it. Do you know what I mean? We were the people that weren't supposed to be. Gays weren't supposed to be mentioned around, and so they weren't. And so, for me anyway, it was this kind of foggy time of isolation.
It's quite sort of weird being heterosexual. So supporting friends and supporting a principle we passionately believed in. It was weird with lip service, because Maggie and I were a comedy double act. People just assumed we were gay. People naturally assumed we were gay, and were terribly shocked when they met our boyfriends.
Yeah, there was at least one coach from Birmingham. I can't remember if there were two. And we made banners. We came up with this. Well, it seems quite corny now, but in my household, we wanted to say something back about the promotion of homosexuality. So you mustn't promote homosexuality. And one of the big things that we wanted to communicate was that you had to promote homosexuality to counter homophobia, right? So homophobia, which we all had internalised because we all lived in a deeply homophobic society, so we all had to overcome our own homophobia in order to come out. And I certainly spent quite a long time sort of getting there. And then lots of people weren't in a position to come out, or couldn't come out, or were still, repressed and not actually able to follow their desires. So the whole thing about you mustn't promote things, and you'd think that we would sort of say, no, we're not promoting anything, but you have to, because that's how you counter homophobia. You're not going to make people feel it's okay to be lesbian or gay, as we would have said in those days, without challenging homophobia. No, so we couldn't. So we'd have all these debates about what to put on the sign. Anyway, in the end, we put something really simple, because we wanted to have a banner that people would see, and and we sewed it all and stuff. It was all a big product. It just said, Brummies say stay gay. And that was our message, was like, stay gay, don't go back in the closet,
I don't think Canal Street existed, but it had some gay bars, and it was a typical city scene in that it had its kind of liberal, lovely, anything goes, but also a really tough element that ran alongside it.
I hadn't been part of those big feminist protests in the 70s. I was too young, and I came, quite late. And the poll tax protests in Brighton were very, very led by the male left, who wanted to have a showdown with the police, and the police were coming with their horses, and there was a lot of fighting. It was quite violent. And I would sort of go to those, but I would be quite intimidated, quite scared of the horses and and this was just like completely different. This was like, just come and be, part of this sort of ocean of solidarity.
The only point I remember anyone talking about anything to do with gay people during my time in education, and like just a little bit of background. So when I was brought up as a Catholic, but by a family who weren't dramatically Catholic, thank God, ironically. So I went to a Catholic primary school, a Catholic secondary school, and if I want to show you a little picture of the Catholic secondary school, it was kind of like in the round, and at the literal centre of it was a Victorian Gothic house in which the priests lived. So that was that. But the only time in this weird kind of like setup that it was ever brought up, like queerness, gayness, homosexuality was ever brought up, was we were having an RE lesson, and the regular teacher wasn't there. So one of the priests who lived in the house that was in the middle of the school, like Gormenghast, came and looked after this session for us, and clearly had no idea what to do with us. So he was just kind of chatting to us. We were all sat down, he was just chatting to us. And I have no memory of what we were talking about, anything. This was a classic lesson. I was probably very bored. And then out of nowhere, seemingly came, he said, and like there were probably there will be quite a few gay people in this school, and that's okay too. And I have no idea what preceded that or afterwards, but it just felt like this very like striking, like a bell being struck kind of moment of like realisation, but also kind of like exposure.
Well, we knew Sue Johnson, Stephen Parry, who played a gay character in Brookside. Stephen was on the march. Ian, Tom Robinson, Peter Tatchell. When I look at the photographs, because I've got them on my phone, I often look at them, because there's a moment, there's one photograph where Ian's got a look on his face where I've clearly said something outrageous or told a really dirty joke, and he's got the look on his face which is, I can't laugh because I don't believe you've just said what you've said. And I look at the march, him with that wonderful coat, swathe of coat that looks white, overcoat, me in my leather jacket with a little button on it, Peter Tatchell, Stephen Parry next to me.
Lots of humour. We were all chanting, we're out, we're proud, and we're not going shopping. And I remember thinking, should I be chanting this because I'm not gay? But I remember, I think it started off in that park just off the Oxford Road, and went up the Oxford Road, went to the old Arndale Centre, the pre-bomb Arndale Centre, which had that bridge across it, that glass bridge, and there were just people standing, staring at us as we went through. I just remember clocking the reaction of the general public, which I think was pretty overwhelmingly positive. I don't remember too many people shouting abuse, because I think people thought it was just ridiculous, Clause 28, it was so backwards looking and so unenforceable. Just a waste of everybody's time, really.
So we got off this coach. I remember waiting, and we were all excited and so on. And we got off this coach and came across to, you know, the square in front of the town hall. And yeah, I felt like I'd died and gone to heaven. I could not believe the numbers and the volume of noise and the sense of being part of this big... It felt like you were part of a movement. Suddenly you went from being, you know, Sheila's bar, Stop the Claws, lesbians, you know, gathering over pints of lager and probably smoking Marlboro at that time. And suddenly we went from feeling like we were this sort of strong force, you know, but we were small, but we felt like we were really doing stuff and we were doing it all the time. Suddenly we felt like we were this small group in this sea of protests, and it was life-changing. It was completely life-changing.
And I remember vividly the welcome we got from people on the streets, the bystanders, the cheers, the applause, the shouts of encouragement. Go on, love!
One of the things that comes up a lot with my particularly secondary school education is I don't remember huge swathes of it. So I either remember nothing or things very, very, very vividly. And I remember being... this is like the beginning of secondary school, like 11-ish. And I remember sitting next to a boy called... I was in class with, in maths. And I remember realising he smelled fucking great. Yeah, and I remember, like, again, that kind of struck bell moment of like, alright, okay, that's that then. Yeah, no, I wasn't like, what does that mean? I knew exactly what it meant. And back to the kind of, this is it, I've got these like weird little like, I'm going to be arty about it, call it a vignette, you know, the priest saying stuff, realising my classmates smelled amazing, kind of these little like very technicolor moments with like fog around them. And I've got to kind of do some deducting from those. And so I knew exactly what that meant. And same with the situation where that priest mentioned, oh, and there are gay people in the school and that's fine too, kind of thing. I knew exactly that's who I was and that I was who was talking. So I was fully aware of gayness and what that meant and all these things. Not fully aware, partially aware. Like, I was aware it was problematic. In terms of like, was it okay? How did it come out? Back to the secondary school was like just a bad time of being very badly bullied by a lot of, looking back, probably also very gay kids.
We were naive enough and romantic enough and defiant enough to believe that we could stop it. And you sensed that on the march because of the anger. If you look at the photographs, very few people smiling. There was a collective sense of anger and indignation that they were doing this to us.
It was just thrilling. It was just absolutely thrilling and, you know, heady. It was just, yeah. It just gave me a certain kind of confidence. I held the banner, Brummies Say, Stay Gay. You know, we put on our banner, we wanted people to know we come from Birmingham, so Brummies Say, Stay Gay. Everybody was coming to talk to us because there was something about the way we'd done the banner that people thought was funny, and they came and chatted and so on. And yeah, they wanted to know what's happening in Birmingham and stuff. And we met tons of people from different places.
And the width of the march, you know, we filled those wide Manchester streets as we came down into Albert Square and then those of us who were going to speak and the ones who were at the front were then taken into the town hall, city hall. But there was a sense that we were out to stop this law happening because it was wrong. And I remember we were up there on the, must be the first or the second floor, overlooking the square. And most of the windows are frosted. And I remember opening this side window. It was only about a foot wide, and I just opened it a tiny bit and looked out, and the crowds were still pouring in and bunching up behind. And I went, Ian, come have a look. And he opened the window a bit more, and somebody spotted us. And the cheers that went up. It was like you hear when suddenly the white smoke goes up above the Vatican, and they didn't have a pope that day, but they did have two determined queens. And to hear those speeches, we went down for when the speeches were. Peter went out there, did his brilliant barnstorming stuff, and then Sue Johnson, speaking with that anger from the heart. Graham Stringer, then the leader of the city council, about there was no place for this in Britain, there was no place for this in Manchester, and Manchester wouldn't have anything to do with it. They could do what they want, but Manchester was going to continue being what it was. I spoke, Ian spoke, and I seem to remember that Tom Robinson sing If You're Proud to Be There, and the crowd did. It was my baptism, if atheists can say that. It was my induction. But it's something that I kept returning to was that they couldn't stop. Lesbians and gay men existed. It made no sense to me. And I used to say at various times, you can round us up, you can gas us, you can try and exterminate us, but as long as a man and a woman procreate, so homosexuality will exist. We are of the family. Now, whether I said that day, I don't know. The romance of memory often seduces you into believing you said and did the right things, but history reports otherwise. But I think that was, by and large, the kind of sentiment. Why are you doing this? And interestingly, if you look back, it was all based on a lie and a myth. That gay men, again the old trope, like they're using against trans people, that we're a threat to children, we're a threat to families, we're a threat to ourselves. But we were out recruiting, we wanted to get into schools to promote homosexuality. I had lived through the 50s, I learned how to not be me. I learned how to hide who I was attracted to. I learned all of the things I shouldn't. I ached to promote someone into loving me, as we all did, and you couldn't promote anyone into something they weren't. And this notion that heterosexuality was so fragile that you had to protect it by repressing others, again, made no sense whatsoever. Like the attack against trans people makes no sense whatsoever. The feminists who say you can't be a woman because you don't wear my scars. I wear my scars so that the next generation don't have to. And if we say, because of your difference, you cannot be like me, then we deny the whole concept of the universality of human rights and the principles of equality. So the same old tropes that they'd used whilst I was growing up, of men in Macs who would wait outside schools to offer you sweets. Yeah. It wasn't enough that we were dying. from an AIDS-related illness, sometimes facing appalling discrimination and hate and stigma. That wasn't enough for them. They wanted, as those signs properly remembered, they wanted to force us underground. But we were out, and we were never going underground.
So yeah, I've spoken to a few people who were like campaigners, who were, you know, were involved in things like the marches in Manchester and stuff, and I've had this conversation with them, and they just can't understand that I didn't know what was going on. But it's obvious to me. How would I know? How would I know?
Nobody's.
Why would you talk about it?
Yeah.
You don't talk about it. You don't talk about the thing because you don't talk about it. It's just obvious when you know. It's obvious to me. Looking back, it's obvious because I've worked in education. I've got a rainbow lanyard. Like all the kids know. I find it really emotional actually how education is such a kind of accepting place now. Looking back as well. So like one of my best friends, and I mean like we went on holiday together. We would spend all our time at each other's houses, spend all our time with each other in school. Has recently told me he's bisexual. I've known him since he was 11. So it takes a long time to unpick this shit, you know? This is who he's always been, you know? This feeling of like, yeah, I knew a lot of gay people when I was growing up. I just didn't know. I knew them.
Wow.
Yeah, all these people I was like close to, knew really well. And for a long time I felt really, really annoyed about that because I was like, just fucking talk to me. I was so desperately alone, do you know what I mean? But no, I wasn't pleased. I wasn't proud of feeling that, but that is how I felt. But I don't anymore because like they were exactly where I was, which is just like terrified. No one felt safe enough to talk to each other.
Well, I'm always amazed that Clause 28 went on till 2003. I can't quite believe that wasn't the first thing the Labour government did when they came into power in 97, was get rid of that. But I think it kind of... I just assumed it had gone away. I mean, was anyone ever prosecuted under Clause 28? It was just a waste of time. Waste of everyone's time. And I think probably it accelerated gay rights. I think, you know, probably accelerated the coming of civil partnership, and certainly David Cameron's eagerness to distance himself from what the Tories did, of which he was very much a part of voting for Clause 28. So yes, he introduced gay marriage, but, you know, he was responsible.
I work in education with the college, but I also do some stuff where I work in schools for different institutions and companies and things. And like queerness is just such an open subject. I mean, like, I think one of the defining ones is I've never heard, you know, like a broken pencil or a dodgy door was like just gay at school, right? In my year anyway. That's just gone now. I just do not hear that anymore. And I think that's one of those lovely like litmus test moments of like gay is not used as a like derogatory for just like things that are no good anymore. I don't hear that. And I've kind of spoken to counsellors and therapists about this, and I don't seem to get any further. There's just this chunk of stuff that's just gone. It's just not there. It's one of those things that kind of deeply, I don't know what to do with it, I suppose, is the best way of saying that. It's just this, there's just this thing, and I suppose maybe because it's from a similar time, but that's part of the way I look at Section 28, as of this fog, this thing you can point at when you're not in it. See what I mean? Yeah, you're on top of a hill and it's like foggy over there. But when you're in it, you're just like, oh, I can't see it. There's nothing to look at.
You want to give us your shame again. You want to blame us for the loss you feel. You can stay in your prison, but we are never going underground. You're afraid for your children, but we were children of the silence. You can make us your criminals, but we are never are never going underground. You're afraid for your children, but we were children of the silence. You can make us your criminals, but we are never going underground. Let me love you in the sunlight, like I loved you in the shelter. I will throw open our windows. I will make the road our living room. Let me love you in the sunlight, like I loved you in the shelter. I will throw open our windows. We are never